Hello everyone, my name is Evan Freiberger, and today we're going to be talking about the weather across the United States for the next week or so. We have a storm that is just north of the Great Lakes right now. This is going to be bringing some rain really from the Great Lakes all the way down to the southeast. We are also watching out for some potential for some severe weather with this system. And then after the system moves out, we are going to have yet another little low pressure system come out of Canada and then move across our country, eventually trying to bring some snow down here into parts of Iowa and the Ohio Valley. And we could see snow as far south as the southeast. Now, we're not talking about really any accumulation, maybe a couple snowflakes for most folks, maybe up here into Kentucky in the higher elevations, down into some parts of the lower portions of the Appalachian Mountains near where like Gallatin is, could pick up a little bit of accumulation. And the main thing that's playing in a factor with that is ground temperatures. It's been warm for a pretty long time, and usually you need a little bit bigger of a cool down to cool down those ground temperatures to see a little bit more accumulation. Those are mainly the main weather stories of the week, and also some pretty dang cold temperatures are coming down, at least for this time of year. But when you're talking about cold temperatures in comparison to as cold as they can get as we get into winter, this is just kind of a easy round warm up. So basically what's happening here is that we are going to have this little low pressure system. So this is a low pressure anomaly map or a height anomaly map. And you can see where our highs and our ridges are setting up over here in these oranges, and in the blues, these are our low pressure systems. And you can see we're going to have one kind of eject very far north and then down to the south eventually. It'll be bringing all that Canadian colder air back down to the south. And given that we have some snowpack already developing back up further north in the Arctic, that means that it's going to be decently cold, and that's going to come down into the northern United States eventually. We're going to have this first little system come through the Ohio Valley. That's the one that's going to be bringing that severe weather potential, not too much snow really at all, to the United States. And then this guy on the backside, this is what we're going to be watching for, a little bit of a snow shot over here in the Great Lakes mainly. And then on the backside of this storm, when this trough ejects down to the south, look at that, that pressure is definitely anomalously low for this kind of year, and that's going to bring some decent cold air all the way down. And look at this as it deepens and then slingshots into the southeast. We could see a couple of the little bit of snow that is being flung around there in the Great Lakes make it as far south as areas like Kentucky, going into Tennessee as we move into Sunday, Monday, and then eventually all of this is going to clear out as we move into about Tuesday. But this is definitely going to drop those temperatures down into the freezing levels, so it's kind of time to make those preparations just to make sure that your pipes don't freeze. Make sure you have a plan in place there, but it's not going to be really dangerous cold at all. It's going to be a little nippy. We're talking about the teens and the lower 20s if you factor in the wind chills. Now, looking like how this is going to look like on radar here, what kind of precipitation we're going to get out of this storm. Over here in the green is the rain, that stuff that makes the ground wet, your car wet, makes you use the windshield wipers. Looks like we're going to be getting some rain up there, the Ohio Valley this morning, going into the afternoon, and then eventually we're going to start to see some storms try to fire down here in the southeast. Now, if we look at where our instability is going to be, we're not really seeing too much instability with this storm. So our main threat with this, I really do think it's going to be some damaging winds and some hail. Not really seeing too much of an elevated chance for tornadoes out of this. Might see maybe a spin up or two, but it's really just not looking that favorable. If we come over here and compare this to some of our other models, you can see like our HRRR, for instance, has a little bit more instability up there, while most of our other models are just kind of on that scant amount of instability, but it does range across the board. There's definitely a chance for severe weather, but if we come over here to our 500 millibar pattern, you can see that this streak of stronger winds aloft are a little bit further north than where that instability is, which means that we're going to be getting kind of a glancing blow from our trough. And down here, not going to be as much forcing, which means the storm's updrafts won't be overly powerful. And if we look at where that trough is located on all of our other model runs, you can see that they're pretty much in agreement on that. Now, if we come back down to the lower level winds, which kind of add with the upper level winds to make some spin in the atmosphere and to maybe cause some tornadoes, and or if you get some heavier precipitation and bring some stronger winds down to the surface. And you can see that we do have a little bit of lower level wind shear as our trough ejects down into the southeast. We're talking about 30 to 40 knots, which isn't nothing, but as you can see, these lines are not really perpendicular. They're a little bit parallel to our storm, and that happens when we don't really have a strong surface low that can really wrap those winds around the center of a storm. So essentially, when you have these winds like this, where we mainly look out for damaging wind and and hail potential, and you could get like a quick little brief tornado, but we're not talking about anything super damaging or super dangerous if we do get one. But generally across the board, not really seeing much differences of opinions through our models. No models really hinting at anything that we really need to watch for that is out of the ordinary here. So if we come over to our HRRR model for today, this is kind of what we're looking at. You can see as I push this forward, eventually we're gonna have a line of storms by around 3 p.m. tonight, and that's gonna extend really all the way from Jackson to Nashville, all the way up into portions of Pennsylvania. And again, most of this is going to be rain. We're not talking about like backside snow for any of these folks. Maybe some pop-up thunderstorms out in front of that down here near Huntsville, Birmingham, Montgomery, and Dothan. Over here near Nashville and Murfreesboro, we're talking about a slight risk for severe weather. That's a 2 out of 5. So definitely want to keep your eye on it. Could get a little bit higher chances of some damaging winds, maybe some small hail in this area. And then as we move into about 8 to 9 p.m., this is probably when our highest chance for maybe a spin up or two is going to be possible over here just south of Nashville. But again, our winds are going to be pretty parallel, not perpendicular. So our significant tornado parameter is going to be relatively low down here, which means we have just an overall low chance of that tornado happening. You could get some mini supercellular type storms that might try to eke out a little one of those little bird fart tornadoes where it throws a fence around, maybe can knock over some tree limbs, maybe some diseased trees falls, but not really talking about that strong tornado potential that has the power enough to maybe rip a roof off of a house. So a day to be weather aware, but not a day to be overall freaking out like your life is going to change in an instant. Now, if I push this forward, you can see our line of storms continues down to the south and east, eventually down into parts of Georgia and South Carolina going into tomorrow. And as you can see, for right now, they don't have a severe weather risk out here, but I do think there's a chance that they do include a marginal down here, especially near Georgia and South Carolina specifically, where we could see some more thunderstorms moving into early morning, but eventually all that kind of clears out into nothingness the next day. We could get maybe a little bit of a resurgence of some moisture and some thunderstorms by around 8 or 9 p.m., but not really looking too dangerous on our future radar. And now after this storm moves through the southeast and the Ohio Valley, could maybe see some heavier snow up there in the northern portion of Maine. And then this low pressure system is forecasted to go further up to the north. So that's going to kind of exclude any other area for some more snow out of this storm. But as we move into around 9 a.m. on Saturday morning, we could be starting to see some flurries pop up here with a new low pressure system. Now this is going to bring a little bit of a higher chance for some snow for a lot of folks, especially on the backside of the storm. And you can see the Euro is still struggling here initially with just how much snowfall this is going to have. It's saying more like rain and mixed precip, which, you know, I'm going to tend to agree with here. But if you compare that to other models like the GFS, you can see that there are models, probably more than none, that are saying that this is going to have some snow on the northern side rather than just mixed precip. But given the fact that it's November, I'm definitely going to side with probably the lower snowfall amounts. But as I push this forward, you can see our low pressure system moves into the Ohio Valley as we go into around 12 a.m. on Sunday, bringing some snow up there near Michigan. That kind of pushes off to the north and east, a little bit more of a northerly trajectory, leaving a lot of folks out of that snow here. But again, as this moves through, we're going to see a decent amount of lake effect snow as we go into Monday afternoon at around 12 p.m. Central Time. And you can see off of the Lake Michigan area, we could see just a strip of snow over and over and over, dropping a decent amount of snow, especially up there into northwestern Indiana, going into western Michigan as well. And then look down here to the south, we could have this little low pressure system move further to the south here, bringing that snow down maybe as far south as like northeastern Alabama, northern Georgia, maybe also into parts of North Carolina and Virginia. Now, I'm not really expecting too much snow accumulation out of this, but I am expecting some flurries to happen for a decent amount of folks down there. Again, it's not going to be kind of those flurries that stick around for too long. You might see a couple snowflakes here and there, but it's not going to be anything that you can just kind of look outside and see. You got to kind of look for a while and hope that you catch one. Now, in terms of snowfall potential down here in the southeast, this is like a total snowfall map. That doesn't really keep into the equation of, you know, how warm is the ground. You know, when you get into the daytime, you get some sun come out, and that just, even if it's a little bit below freezing, can cause some snow melt. And I think this is a little bit more of an accurate, it could be a little bit more snow than this, but here's the Euro run. When you factor in all the other things that cause snow to melt, like, yeah, you might get a dusting over there in Kentucky. You might see snowflakes in Alabama or Georgia, maybe even going into North Carolina or Virginia. But as you can see, we're just not really expecting too much accumulation due to the ground temperatures and radiative properties of just the atmosphere in general, which means sunlight, more radiation, less snow accumulation. But if we do look and see who has a chance of at least seeing snow over the next 5 days, you can see that we're mainly talking about over here near Michigan with around 2 to 3 inches being possible. Little strip here from Indiana, Illinois, parts of Wisconsin down into Ohio as well. Could see anywhere from 6 to 5 inches. Another little 6 to 5 inch spot over there in the mountains of West Virginia. Lower elevations, maybe 2 to 3 inches, maxing out around 4 inches. And then down here, we could see snow flurries, really all the way into northeastern Alabama and Georgia, maybe going into South Carolina. And also could see some snow flurries over here in Virginia if you're lucky. And then maybe even 1 to 2 inches. This could actually accumulate to about 1 or 1.5 inches here into southern Maryland near the coast. Up here a little bit further northeast near Lake Erie, we could have around 2 to 4 inches. Northern New York around 1 to 7 inches there, especially over there near the lake. Then the higher elevations of Vermont, New Hampshire going into Maine, talking about 2 to 4, maybe some isolated areas of 5 to 6 inches the further north you go. So yeah, not a blockbuster storm by any means, but I still think the main story with this storm is going to be the temperatures. And I know that's not really overly exciting for anybody, but I mean, as we go into Sunday, we're definitely going to see temperatures start to go down into minus 20 degrees below average. So we're talking about a below or above average temperature. So it's definitely going to be colder than average Sunday through Monday, especially into Monday out over here in the southeast. Some anomalously cold temperatures for sure. And then look at this. We do also get into, 26 degrees below average here into Florida as well. So it's going to be feeling colder than usual. It's something that's, going to be dangerous. No, it's not going to be dangerous. We're talking about, teens to just below freezing. If I come over to our temperatures, you can see that across the board, we're talking about 20s to 30s degree temperatures, and maybe even getting down into the 30s and 40s there into Florida. And again, that's going to be really starting on Saturday up there further up to the north, and then really spreading across most of the eastern country on Monday. And our coldest day is probably going to be on Tuesday, at least anomalously wise. You can see no one's really getting below those 20s. But if you factor in the wind chill, we're definitely going to see some feels like temperatures in the teens. And look at this, all the way up there into North Dakota, could even get into the single digits feels like temperatures. And that's not going to really spread anywhere further down to the south, but we could see into the teens and going into the 20s, at least that feels like temperature, and maybe feeling like below freezing there near the coast of Florida on the panhandle. Yeah, after this storm rolls through and that lake effect snow kind of cools down, we're going to start to see a little bit more of a neutral pattern until we get a little bit of a bigger system to come through. You can see there's a lot of pressure gradients off the west coast, potentially going to bring rain to the west coast, but overall it's going to be pretty quiet immediately after this storm. And in our range of accuracy, we really don't have much to talk about just yet. But all right, folks, that's going to be it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure you hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed this forecast, and I will see you guys on the next video. Peace.